What is up, internet basketball junkie? So you want to be a head high school varsity basketball coach. To do that, I think that there is three things that you need to do, and I'm going to share those with you in this video. My flagship product on my store, Powerhouse program building, has two kinds of coaches that typically consume the materials. One is a more veteran head coach that has their own program already and is looking to maximize it to the best way possible. And the second avatar would be younger coaches, assistant coaches, less experienced coaches that are eyeing being a head coach someday. And they want to have clarity on how they're going to build their program once they get the opportunity to do so. So this video is targeted more towards the younger coaches, the coaches with less experience, the coaches that have been assistant coaches up to this point in their journey, and they're looking to pivot into being a head coach. So there's three things that I think you need to do. I'll talk about all three in the video. But those three things are: start building your coaching portfolio, build up your references, and polish your interview skills. So we'll talk about each of those individually, and we're going to start with building your coaching portfolio here. So what is a coaching portfolio? Well, to me, it's your complete vision for running a basketball program committed to paper. Okay. It's not simply your career track record of what you've done and where you've coached at. It's not just a list of references. It's a complete vision for how you would run a basketball program, sparing no detail, committed to paper. It accomplishes three things for you when you go through the process of building your coaching portfolio. And the first thing is it gives you complete clarity on how you're going to run a basketball program once you get one. Okay, so the exercise is you're thinking about every element of your program. You're thinking through it all and committing it to paper. So when situations arise, you're not, just making up on the fly what you're going to do. You already have a plan. And then it makes an impression. So when you get into these situations where you're interviewing for coaching jobs, you have this portfolio to present to your interview committee, and they are making judgments about you based on this portfolio. Without you even saying a word, they are understanding that you have a vision. They're understanding that you have a plan for what you're going to do. They understand that you're organized. So they're able to make a lot of assumptions about you before you even say a word in the interview. And then the third thing that building this coaching portfolio does is it becomes your program playbook. So once you do get a head coaching job, you're then able to use your portfolio to execute the ideas that fit into that community. And you already know what you're going to do. You're not evaluating and making decisions once you've been hired. So one of the things that I think with your coaching portfolio is that it should have a physical presence to it. I'm not talking about a folder of information with some inserts in it. I'm talking about something that when an interviewer is holding it in their hands, it has weight to it. When it sets down on the table, it makes a thud. I think that there is value in letting the interview committee know that you have a big vision, that you've done a lot of planning for what you're going to do, and they make those assumptions about you based on your portfolio. Again, without you even speaking, they're able to know a lot about you as a coach and what you're going to do if they do hire you. So I believe that these coaching portfolios should be fully customized. So what that means is when you would take it into an interview setting, you're going to have the name of the people on the interview committee, their name and their job title on the cover with branding from that school. So they know that you've made that extra effort to put the cover on there and you've researched to know who's going to be on the committee, and they all get their own customized copy. Again, we've talked about the physical presence of it. I think it should have thickness to it. It should have size. It should have volume. And one of the things with that is it a lot to put together for the first time? Absolutely. Okay. But you only have to put it together once. And then once you have new ideas as you move along in your coaching career, if you don't get a head coaching job, then you just insert those into your into your portfolio. You don't have to redo it every time. So yeah, it might take you all summer to put this together if you do it the right way, but then you have that as a weapon moving forward on any job hunt that you would want to go on. And if you're looking around and you decide that you want a certain job, all it is printing off the copies and swapping out the covers, and boom, you've got this ready-made document to make the right impression on an interview committee. I believe it should be spiral bound. I believe that it should be graphically designed. And, if you don't have graphic design skills, this is something that you can outsource, or you can send it off to a company and they'll make it look real pretty. So, you don't have to be a graphic designer. There is a cost for somebody to set that up for you. But again, it's, one time to get that thing set up, and then all it is printing it off after that. So what do you put into a coaching portfolio? This is the table of contents of my coaching portfolio. Okay. And what I have in here, I have a resume of my coaching career. I have my references and my influences. I have, what I believe in, what coaching means to me. I think an interview committee should know a lot about me just going through these first 4 sections of my portfolio. 14 things to distinguish our program. So those are kind of unique elements that I would introduce into a basketball program to make it stand out. Program promotion, how we're going to promote our program, how we're going to build our youth program, a season plan, taking a step out and viewing it from a big picture standpoint, how the whole year lays out. I'm going to get into some of my philosophies as a coach. So defensive philosophy and offensive philosophy, and I'm just looking to demonstrate that I know what I'm talking about and that I have a plan. I don't know that you need to make this so that everybody on the interview committee, fully understands exactly what your coaching philosophy is, but to have it in there where they know that you have your X's and O's down. I'm going to talk about what I believe in terms of fundamentals. I'm going to put some of my favorite special situations plays in there. I'm going to talk about how we're going to do our skill development. I'm going to talk about a vertical program, which is how each level of the program connects with one another, how your youth program connects to your middle school and how it connects to the high school and the objectives at each of those stages. I'm going to talk about how we're going to be organized from the top down. I'm going to talk about how we're going to handle scouting, how we're going to handle strength and conditioning, how we're going to do up to the top here, our personal development to build character in kids. I'm going to talk about how we're going to raise money. I'm going to talk about how we're going to get our community enthusiastic about what we're doing. I'm going to talk about how I work with assistant coaches, how I'm going to deal with behavior issue with players, how I'm going to deal with parents, and I'm going to talk about how I'm going to build out my practice plans. And I've been coaching for 12 years. So I've accumulated a lot of forms and documents related to the things that we do. So I'm going to throw in all those forms at the back end of this where they can see how we would run a fundraiser or how we would use our discipline policy. So all of that stuff is just going to be thrown together in the back with some kind of labeling system so people could find it if they're interested in looking that up. Are the people in the interview committee going to read this from start to finish? No, they're not going to do that. There's debate about whether you want to give this to them before the interview. I believe that you do to make that impression. Some people might say that you wouldn't want to give it to them because then they'll be looking through it and thumbing through it instead of listening to you talk. I believe that you want to make that impression, that you're prepared, that you're organized, that you have a vision, and you want this to be kind of a reference manual that can work for you when you're not around anymore. So, if an interviewer sees this in their car and they start thumbing through it, it's like you're selling your program while you're not even there outside of the interview. So those are the kind of things that I put in my portfolio. And my portfolio really is the basis of my Powerhouse program building product, where it's not solely my portfolio, but my portfolio is in there completely. And then I've built out a lot of elements beyond just the coaching portfolio, a workbook, and some different processes that you can go through to really help you with the process of getting complete clarity on how you would run a basketball program if you were the head coach. So moving on, we talked about the things that you would put in it. And you're going to literally break down everything you plan to do running your program. And what this does is it forces you into some self-reflection where you have to think about how you want to handle certain things and what you want to be doing. And it's also an investment in yourself. So like what I talked about earlier, it might take you a whole summer to put something like this together to do it the right way. But that is then an asset that you can use to get a head coaching job at any point in your career moving forward after that. So that's the portfolio. I think it's one of the bigger pieces in getting head coaching jobs. And if you don't have one put together, I would encourage you to do that. And if you do have one, I would encourage you to look at it objectively and see if it's accomplishing all the things that, I talked about in this portion of the video, where you're getting all the benefits of what your portfolio can do for you in these, job hunting situations. So we talked about what to put in it. We talked about how it should look, the physical appearance of it. We talked about what it accomplishes. And now we'll move on to this second piece of this video, which is building your references. So you want to build your references. What do your references do? They get you in a room and they pull you across the finish line. So how they get you in a room is when you don't have a resume that stacks up against coaches that have more experience or a larger track record of winning basketball games, you have to separate yourself in some other ways. And part of that is who is willing to recommend you. If you have no references and no track record, it's really hard to distinguish your resume. But if you have people that have clout vouching for you, they can find your resume and move it to the top of the stack to get you an interview, even if your track record as a coach doesn't reflect the experience level of some of the other candidates. So it can get you in the room and then pull you across the finish line. What I mean by that is a technique that I've used successfully and that I recommend to most coaches is that you have someone with high impact on your references that's going to call the decision maker after your interview and put in a good word for you. So if you are in the hunt for a job, if they're on the fence about you, if it's between you and another candidate for getting the job, then you have, a heavy hitter that's calling in and that's, pushing you and nudging you across the finish line to help you land that job. So, who are your references? Okay. What you're looking for with your references is to have heavy hitters. Okay. People that an interviewer would recognize. Okay. These are successful high school coaches. These are college coaches. These are athletic directors. These are business owners. And these are significant community members. Okay. So these significant community members would be significant to the community that you're interviewing. If you have any of those, you definitely want to have them on there. An interview committee doesn't care about insignificant people. You want a whole stable of references that are as much of heavy hitters as possible. They don't care about your boss at the froyo shop where you worked at through college, who's going to sit there and say that you never missed a shift and you were always on time. They don't care. They don't care about your neighbor across the street that's going to say, oh, he loved basketball so much. I saw him out in his driveway every day, right? They're only interested in people that their name carries weight. Okay, so you've got to get those people on there. As much as you might have people that are going to say nice things about you, if they're insignificant people, they really don't matter in this equation. Okay, moving on. How do you get these heavy hitters onto your references? Okay, well, first and foremost, you might have some people that fit this mold based on your coaching experience so far. Who was your college coach? Who was your high school coach? Who have you made relationships with naturally in your coaching journey that may, fit into this, heavy hitter category of a college coach, a high school coach, a significant community member, a business owner. You might have some of those that might lay a solid baseline for making up a references list. And beyond that, you're looking to prospect. So what this means is you're looking around, you're identifying people, and then you're trying to get them to be references for you. And you're not calling them and saying, hey, will you be a reference for me if they don't know you? What you're doing is you're playing a longer term game where you're trying to build a relationship with someone to get them in a position where at some point they are willing to be a reference for you. So the first thing over here, shoot your shot. It's never been easier to reach out to people with social media. You're able to send a DM to a coach. You're able to try to network with people. The worst that they can do is just ignore you or say no. If they say yes and give you an in, then you're able to work that angle on a long-term play to try to create a relationship. And you're not just doing this just solely to get a reference. You can learn from these people while you're developing them into a situation where they would be proud to be your reference. A great technique is to just say that you want advice in a DM, that you're willing to buy them a coffee, that you just need 15 minutes of their time or something like that. And you start a relationship based on kind of a mentor-mentee situation where you've got a unique question to ask them. They give you advice. They feel good about themselves because they've helped you and you've kind of weaseled your way into starting a relationship. An apprentice situation, if they'll allow you to do things for them, even if it's for free, and this could be in a short-term situation or a long-term situation. So you don't have to be, a, a volunteer coach for an entire season for someone, but you could work their youth camp for free. You could offer to help them with their skill workouts as a rebounder or something like that. You can do all kinds of things to kind of work your way in and start learning from them. And you just want to be able to provide value, and you want to do more than expected. So, when I was a younger coach, I had a Division III college coach reach out to me, and he was asking me about a baseline out of bounds. He wanted a baseline out of bounds package for his team to sift through. And you could deliver a group of 5 plays and fulfill what he asked you for, or you could go above and beyond and show all kinds of counters and different options and just doing more than what would be expected for an ask like that. So you're looking for these situations where you can assert yourself and you can do more than expected by providing value. And once you build these situations, you want to stay in contact with these people. You want to shoot them a note. When you see they win a big game, you shoot them a note. When you see it's their birthday on Facebook, you send them a note. You call back with another question. Hey, I'm in this predicament with my coaching career. Can you give me some advice? This isn't a one-time thing where you're starting a relationship. This is something that you're constantly nurturing a relationship with these people. And when you've done that long enough, you need to make the ask to be a reference for you. Once you've felt like you've built up enough trust, a deep enough relationship, you ask them, hey, I really want to get a head coaching job. Would you mind if I, listed you as one of my references? And if you've done the work ahead of time, most of them are going to say no problem. They're happy to help you. And when you do list these people on your references, one of the mistakes that I see, they just list, coach so and so from this school, here's a phone number if you want to call them. One of the things that I've always done that I think makes a really nice impression is that you add in what the influence is that they've had on you, so they know that the relationship has some depth to it, where you might say, I learned 5-out offense from Coach Johnson, or I learned how to build a vertically aligned program from Coach Jackson, or what, you're showing that it's not just I know this person, but they actually taught me something that I can apply to my coaching career. And this same thing applies with like your career history in coaching. So you're not just listing that I was at ABC College from 2009 to 2014, but you're also adding what skills you learned while you were there that contribute to you being the coach you are today, and the skills that you're able to bring into your program that you're asking them to hire you for from the stops that you made. So don't just list people's name, list their influence that they've had on you, and apply that to your career resume as well. What you learned at each stop along the way. I think that makes a much better impression about the skills you have and where they came from. Okay, so we've talked about nurturing these relationships to build up a heavy hitters list of references that can get you in a room and pull you across the finish line. The last piece of this is the interview. You've got to go into an interview room and you've got to sell your skills. No one can save you here. It's you against the committee, and you've got to put on a performance for them so that they believe you're the guy. So how do we polish these interview skills? There's two things that I think make a big difference, and they are to create an irresistible vision. When these people hear you talk, how excited you are about what you're about to build, they're starting to buy in and believe it. And then learning to pivot and flip. So these are interview techniques that I use. And what these look like is, so pivoting is your talking points that you can get to whenever you feel like you're kind of flaming out on a question. So you get in these interview situations and you develop kind of five things that you're about, five of your best talking points, and you figure out how you're going to pivot to these things when you're kind of unsure about how you're going to answer a question. So instead of start doing a word salad, or instead of giving an unclear answer, you're pivoting off the question, but you're doing it in a way that's going to make you look good talking about the highlights of you as a coach or what you're about to build. So pivoting is the technique, and then flipping is the other technique. And this is for any coach, especially coaches that don't have a lot of experience. They're going to ask you about your lack of experience. They're going to ask you if you can handle this responsibility at a young age, and you need to be able to not ho-hum about those things that are going to be perceived as weaknesses, but talk about how those are actually a strength for you. So, if they're asking you about, you're only 23 years old, how are you going to, manage a whole program, the responsibility of a whole program at such a young age? And you have your answers practice where you're going to say, actually, I think my age is a strength because I have more energy at this point in my life. I see a lot of older coaches that are just kind of mailing it in, and I have energy to really attack this and really build something. And I don't have a family yet. I'm not distracted by a wife and kids at home. I'm fully intending to just immerse myself in this program. And even though I may be young, I already have, a list of five coaches that are going to want to come on staff with me and be my assistant, that all have head coaching experience and that are older, and they can mentor me on the job. So you have answers like that to take any of what your most obvious perceived weaknesses are, and you're going to turn those into strengths for the interview committee. And what these two techniques do is they keep the attention on your irresistible vision, instead of people noticing that you don't have a great answer for a specific question, or that you weren't able to talk down your perceived weaknesses. Flipping and pivoting, and then having an irresistible vision. Well, how do we have an irresistible vision? Well, it's going to become clear by building your portfolio. If you've thought about every element of running a basketball program and committed it to paper, right, you're going to develop your irresistible vision through that. So the process of doing the portfolio works with your interviewing skills, where you have complete clarity on the vision that you have for your program. They're not going to ask you a question if you've built your portfolio the right way. They're not going to ask you a question where you don't have an answer, because you've done all the consideration and you've put it on paper for your portfolio. So your portfolio, it gives you this complete clarity on running your program. You become a master of talking about it. And that's not the competition here to get head coaching jobs. It's not whoever presents the best portfolio gets hired. You're competing against people that have factors that are different than yours. You're going to have coaches that have head coaching experience. If you're a young and experienced coach that hasn't been a head coach, you're going to be competing against head coaches that have experience, and you're going to be competing against coaches that have experience and a winning track record. And if you're a young coach, and if you've only been an assistant coach and never been a head coach, that's a deficit that you have to offset, and you have to offset it by showing that you're prepared and have a vision and a plan through your portfolio, and being a master in your presentation through your irresistible vision. If it's just stacking up who has the most head coaching experience and who has a winning track record and who doesn't, you're going to lose out on as an inexperienced coach. But if you can offset that and really sell your vision and show that you're organized, you have a chance to offset some of these things that are more natural for people to look at when it comes to a candidate for a head coaching job. So you want to blend your irresistible vision with community specific research. So how do you do that? You have to look into the programs that you're interviewing for. You have to understand who their rivals are, what their program history was, who's who in the district. You don't want to get into the interview committee and not know who the superintendent is or the principal is or details about the community. And you want to be paying attention to the noise of the community, because this is going to give you some insight into how to answer some of the questions. The previous coach left on some kind of terms. Did he get fired because, he mistreated kids? Was there low morale in the program? Was there no off-season programming? Those are things where people are going to naturally want to shore up the things that people had been complaining about with the previous coach. So if the last coach was mistreating kids, you want to make sure that you're clear on that you handle kids the right way. So you're blending. You've got your own vision, which is not community dependent. It can be taken to any community, but you're also understanding what's happening in the community that you're interviewing for, so that you can kind of show off that you have knowledge about the community and also an understanding about what they've been going through in the recent past. So general interviewing tips, these aren't going to, get you a job, but they will make the right impression. You're going to do things like shake hands and make eye contact. You're going to dress to impress. I would recommend wearing a suit to the interview. And I think you want to add some school colors into your attire. And if you're not going to add school colors, at least don't wear the colors of the rival school. If you're interviewing for a school that is green and white as their main colors and their rival is black and gold, you don't want to go in there with a big gold tie on. Interviewing, I think you really want to relax and have fun with it, which is easier said than done. But you don't want to be all tense. The more you do these interviews, the easier that it gets to perform and give good answers. But if you're all uptight and you're worried and you're anxious, that's going to come across in the answers that you give during the interview process. If you're in the room, they assume that you know basketball. Okay, you're not going to go in to an interview for a head coaching job and have to give some detailed breakdown of your offensive system. Now, you might get into that in some of your answers, or there might be some very surface levels questions about your basketball X's and O's or basketball strategies. For the most part, if they're interviewing you for a high school head coaching job, they assume that you know basketball. The questions that are going to come, from an interview committee are going to be, how are you going to work with the administrator team? How are you going to work with the teachers? How are you going to discipline kids? It's going to be things like that. It's not going to be, tell me about dribble drive motion, or tell me about a diamond press or something like that. It's going to be stuff that's outside of the basketball court often. And usually the people on the interview committee have a specific angle that they're going to be asking questions from. The athletic director is concerned about how you're going to work with other coaches. So, are you going to try to dominate and roll over the other coaches, or you're going to work with the other coaches? The principal of the school, he's concerned about how you're going to discipline kids and things like that. Another strategy that I recommend would be taking interviews for jobs that you're not interested in. And this does require some discipline, because you may get offered these jobs and they might be kind of graveyard coaching jobs. I don't think you want to accept a graveyard coaching job just to have a head coaching job, but taking interviews for jobs you're not interested in is a great way to get practice in the interview setting. And you have to have the discipline to say no if they offer it to you, but just the more interview practice that you have, the better you're going to get at it. So only taking interviews for jobs that you're 100% interested in is going to leave you going into those interview settings a little bit tight. The next thing here is have some of your mentors do mock interviews with you. So you're calling up the people that you trust, older, more experienced coaches, your mentors, and you're having them ask you questions like they are the interview committee, and you're practicing giving your answers. Your mentors, your experienced head coaches, they're going to think of things that you might not have thought of. And, you've got to be ready to answer in a great way. And this is a good time to practice your pivoting, your pivoting and flipping techniques. And then, after you go through an interview process, you want to file away the interview questions that you can remember. You put those into a document or a spreadsheet or something like that. And then when you're practicing for your interviews on the next job, you have those questions, especially ones that you might have stumbled on in the interview process. So those are the three things that I think you need to do to get a head coaching job. This strategy has worked really, really well for me in my coaching career. This is the recommendation that I give a lot of coaches because I get this question asked very commonly. And if you're interested in, getting clarity on how you would build a program, my Powerhouse program building, I would highly recommend it. It's certainly an investment, but I think if you looked at the case studies and look at the testimonials, you'll realize there's a tremendous amount of value coming from this. And it's a cheat code to be able to get head coaching jobs, and it's a cheat code for how to build a program once you do get accepted as the head coach somewhere. Thanks for staying tuned in through this entire presentation. If you have questions, shoot me an email. I'm happy to help you. Thanks, Coach.